This shop's one of a kind. We never know what might turn up. Some days, it could be a grand old classic. Other days, maybe a muscle car, even a military vehicle. Some jobs are quick fixes. Others are full-blown restorations. And on occasion, million-dollar recreations. My only rule, perfection. And that's the kind of thing that we do at the Guild Garage.
We're making room for 1955 3100 Chev. Beautiful truck, 454. It's a really sweet ride, for sure.
And every now and then we have a project that comes from the heart, and this is one of those projects because the owner, he's starting to have a hard time driving the truck because it's manual steering.
I've been involved with classic cars for quite a few years now, and my dad's always been talking about getting himself a Model A Ford and all this good stuff, but for the size he's at, the Model A Ford was a bit small, so we all kind of looking for something for him. So one day I happened to be at the auction in Toronto, and this little truck came up on the stage. So as soon as I saw the little truck, I said, well, that'd be a perfect machine for him for sure. And right away he fell in love with it.
We're looking at the rack and pinion to change it from a manual rack to a power rack. When you're moving and going down the road, it's not so bad. When you're just sitting still or barely moving, you have to overcome, you know, the surface area of the tires, and it makes it harder to turn for sure.
Power rack system works very much like any other hydraulic system. We put a hydraulic pump onto the block, and it will be run by the belt drives, and it will build up hydraulic pressure that will end up assisting in the turning from side to side.
We had a client send us a taillight from his car. You know, it was damaged in an accident. He tried to get a part, couldn't get it. He sent it to us. We tried to get the part. We sourced around the world. That particular taillight for that particular car is absolutely unavailable from anywhere. So rather than saying, well, we can't do it, what we said was, we can make it. We can use the broken one, put it together, make casts, and recast one. One of the great things about having a staff like I've got is that when you can't get parts, and parts are getting increasingly more difficult to obtain all the time, well, we can just turn around and make them. And we look first. I mean, we sometimes look for months before we finally give up and say, well, you know what? We got to bite the bullet. We got to make this. Because sometimes making it's very expensive, but sometimes it's the only way out.
Making Carl a pressure tank so that he can cast his taillight lenses without any bubbles.
The original test pieces that we used for the resin casting process before using a pressure tank have come out with voids, bubbles, defects, so it required another system that we had to go with.
So a pressure tank is basically a vessel that you put the mold in once the resin is poured into, and then you bring it up to 60 psi, and any of the bubbles that are in there get much, much smaller, hopefully disappear.
Al was very innovative when he built the pressure tank. What he actually ended up doing was using an old propane tank, and he cut it apart.
I've got 2 tanks that I welded together to get myself enough length. And right now I'm welding some flanges onto them and cutting out the opening. There's a nice lip seal that's gonna get filled with polyurethane and seal everything, and then it'll get bolted together, and we'll test it full of water to make sure it doesn't explode.
I got a call from a lady that just recently moved from Calgary to Toronto, and she has an MGB that she's complaining ran really, really well in Calgary, but is not running well in Toronto. Immediately, I thought to myself, there's a 3,000-foot difference in elevation, and that this is a case of altitude sickness.
The higher you go, the thinner the air. So the thinner the air, the more fuel that the carburetor gets, so that you'd have to adjust the carburetor to compensate for that.
When you're talking about the fine tuning of a carburetor to get that 14-to-1 ratio for the air-fuel, it means for sure that you have to be exact. A lot of the cars at higher altitudes have larger jets in them. They've been richened up quite a bit. Something that runs really well there is not going to run well here.
I had a vacuum line through the heater control is the T-fittings, the connectors are all dried up and cracked and broken. So it's got a vacuum leak there. That'll cause the engine to run rough. So we'll start by replacing these or just putting some vacuum line on and see how it runs after that.
Okay, so in up there. This is a steering rack. When they say the rack and pinion, it's because it's the design of it. It has a pinion bearing going through and a worm gear. So the rack and pinion is that unit there. And that's a standard rack and pinion unit. This power rack needs to be supplied with hydraulic fluid. And where it's supplied from is this pump that we're going to be mounting on the motor. And we'll have lines coming out of the back of this pump and running into the rack. And this is going to make this, bring it into this century anyway.
So I welded a ring onto here. And I'm gonna actually probably weld the inside of that. And then there's a ring inside here. So we've got a nice gutter. I figure we poured some 2-part polyurethane in there. We've got such a large perimeter of the door, and there's gonna be about 60 PSI on every square inch of it, and that adds up in the door. And so it's gonna be pushing that hard against the door, and so we need to have a nice tight seal.
Just give one quick test here.
Great.
This larger mold.
And I'll give you a shelf in there too. Or we'll just put a piece of plywood in.
Measure this way. Gonna be close. It fit that.
Good. All right, great.
That looks nice.
Question is, what color are we gonna paint it?
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, this thing still has a few issues. We could have some issues with the carburetor.
If it doesn't blow up, it'll be perfect.
To mount this new power steering unit in this 55 Chev pickup, we need to mount a pump to the block, run it off a belt so that it can feed the hydraulic fluid through to the steering rack and give him that nice, easy steering. The motor has mounting holes that we can put our bracketry on. So we're gonna make up the brackets and we're gonna mount them on the front of the motor and hook a belt to it. And this is gonna be a belt drive pump to feed the rack. Nice and solid.
Well, the challenge here is going to be trying to get this pump to fit in and a pulley to go over this housing so we can hook the belts up to it.
And does it need that much? I guess it needs that much offset to get it over the pump.
Yeah. So then, if we do the collar, then this is going to hit.
Yeah. So you've got to incorporate an S bend into your bracket.
Exactly.
Which means the S bend is a moment of weakness in the structure, so it's going to have to be buttressed, which means you're going to have to put a reinforcement plate somewhere on that S.
Right. Some sort of gusset in the back of it.
Yeah. Yeah, just to strengthen it.
Which I believe that.
Well, you know what that's going to end up going then, right in the metal shop.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
Originally, I was doing a lot of the casting myself, and then Carl had expressed an interest in taking up the mantle. So at that point in time, Al decided he was going to make us a pressure tank. There's always a danger anytime that you're working with a pressurized canister, especially one that you're going to be making yourself. You have to make sure that you do this in a very professional way.
We ordered some alloy steel turnbuckle parts, and they're nice and strong and rated for a couple thousand pounds each, which is good. And we have 8 of them because we're going to be putting about 7,000 pounds of pressure on the lid itself. Just going all around the seams to make sure everything's nice and strong and the pressure's distributed evenly on everything. And then I'm putting 3 little legs on so it doesn't tip. And that is our pressure tank. If it doesn't blow up, it'll be perfect.
I need to repair some of these vacuum lines on this MGB before I can do any further diagnosis. Sounds way better now when I put the vacuum right to the distributor. Full vacuum to the vacuum advance to the distributor runs way better. The vacuum lines definitely helped, but we could have some issues with the carburetor still. It should be gummed up. Yeah, it's still idling a little high. It's probably around 1,800, so it's got to come down to about 800. So we're 1,000 RPM higher than it should be. Probably could use a good run. That's where I would start now, then see how it goes after the fact. Well, not really happy how the engine's running. Idle's hanging up pretty high. Got no power.
Carl's got the new gasket finished, all cast in place, so it's now time to test it and see if it leaks. With any pressure vessel, you want to make sure that it seals right, because if you fill it up with air and it explodes, it's a problem. When you're testing a pressure vessel, you want to take it up to beyond its working pressure. So what you do is you fill it all up with water, and you do what's called a static pressure test. So you filled it up with a completely medium that's not compressible, and then you got a little bit of space left in for air. Pull it up to pressure, and if you were to have a rupture, it would squirt out a little bit of water and a little bit of air would leak out, but you wouldn't be dangerous. So that's what I'm doing right here. So we will bring it up to full shop air pressure, which should be around 120 PSI, and hopefully it doesn't go boom. We seem to be good. No major hissing, no problems.
I can tell somebody's been into the carburetor because the screws are all stripped.
Cool, let's give it a shot. I think this might be the one.
Doing a custom job on this truck to put the power steering in. We need custom brackets. With this unit, we're having to, probably have to massage a few parts into place and make it work.
Hey, great. Have a second? Yeah, sure. What do you need?
This is a power steering bracket that we're gonna need customized. It needs to come back in about 3/4 of an inch.
Okay.
And then have this piece on it.
3/4 from this face to the face.
Right
back
here.
Right. Perfect.
Al is so quick with his solutions that it actually is just as economical just to say, what can you do with this? And it's a resource for all the guys here. They appreciate it because they don't want to wait around for pieces they need. A little while later, he walks out and puts it in your hand.
Hey, Greg. Made you a little mock-up out of sheet metal. I figured
nice.
we'd try it out.
Okay.
And if it fits right, I'll make the same thing out of steel.
Perfect.
Cool, let's give it a shot. I think this might be the one.
The moment of truth. That's a thing of beauty.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just like that in steel?
Just like that in steel.
For the resin casting process, it has to work fairly quickly due to the limited work time of the resin itself. So Carl has to mix the resin in the proper proportions for the proper amount. And then at that point in time, he has to get it into a vacuum chamber and degas it so that it has a lot of the bubbles from the mixing process sucked out of it. And then at that point in time, he's got to pour it, and then he's got to take it and put it into the pressure tank. He's got to do this all in under 2 minutes. So this is something that's very, very difficult to do.
Now we wait for 4 hours.
The road test didn't tell me too much on this MGB, so I'm going to start to look at the carburetors. I can tell somebody's been into the carburetor because the screws on the top of the dash pot are all stripped. So it's been on and off a few times, this car, enough to strip the screws. So I pulled it off this morning, and I'm going to take it apart and soak it in the carb cleaner for a few hours and order a carb kit up for it and overhaul the carburetor. Basic thing I've noticed right off the bat with this, when it was dirty inside, hasn't been serviced in a while. Here we have to make sure that diaphragm is in good shape and not ripped, or it won't work properly. And it looks good. It stinks so much, that cleaner, we keep it in a little storage shed outside. Now we just have to wait now and let it soak for a few hours, and I'll come back and check it to make sure it's clean. If it's clean, then pull it out of that cleaner and rinse it all off and blow dry it clean and wait for the kit.
Hey, shall we see if she's a size 6 or a size 7?
That sounds pretty good to me. I hate to tell you, but it's perfect. Absolutely perfect.
I hate it when that happens.
I know.
It's the worst.
I know.
Now I gotta find something else to do.
The spacers and mounts that Al made up for me should work out great. I'll be able to put the proper belts on and route the power steering lines from the pump to the rack, and everything should work out right.
It's all ready to put back on the car and fire it up, and hopefully it runs good.
Bravely take a look inside. Bravely take a look inside. Yeah, all right. That's not too bad at all. You just clean off some of the flash, polish it up, and we've got a replacement taillight lens. Yeah, this doesn't look too bad.
The great thing about this new process is that now we have the capability of giving good professional lens casting and any other resin casting that's necessary.
Some mold releases on it, but it can turn out all right.
Hey, Dan.
Hey,
You got that carburetor kit I hear came in?
yeah, it came in yesterday.
Perfect. The MGB carb kit came in. I'm ready to assemble the carburetor. I've already soaked the carburetor in carb cleaner. It's clean, dried, blowed out, and everything. It's ready to assemble.
There you go.
Oh, thank you.
Not a problem.
And we got all new gaskets here. Gaskets should be replaced because they tear and come apart when you're disassembling the carburetor, and you don't want any leaks when you finish the job. The kit comes with a new needle and seat that controls fuel flow into the carburetor. So that should always be replaced because the needle wears out and can cause internal leaks, flooding. So the carb, I've got it all together now. It's all ready to put back on the car and fire it up and make the final adjustments, and hopefully it runs good. Fired it up, it started right up. Pretty happy about that. Had to do some adjustments, had to adjust the idle mixture to get the idle engine running smooth, and then I had to set the idle speed so it's the proper RPM. Hey, Ron. Hey, Tom.
How's it going?
It's okay. Got her going here. It seems to be a lot better than it was. So now it's idling nice and seems responsive, and I'm pretty happy with how it's running.
The MG is running great. So that means that he managed to nail the diagnosis, he fixed that carburetor up, and it tuned it really well.
Nice and smooth, back and forth. All right, there we go. He should be pretty happy with that. Very smooth.
Greg worked pretty hard getting the power steering into that Chevy, so just to be on the safe side, we've asked the owner to come give it a try.
Okay, so there's your brand new shiny power steering pump down there on the front of your big block. We moved your alternator that was over here to the other side, made up some billet brackets, have everything on there, your fan back on, nice shiny pulleys.
Good. Yeah.
One finger.
One finger.
Pretty damn good, boy. Oh, yeah. All the difference in the world. But before we got the truck, the first time I took it, it's kind of hard to drive, you know. So I got a bad back, and so I used to go to the parking lot and park, and hard to turn, hard to, you know, to take the places. So I'm glad we came, and glad you guys done it, and I think it's a pretty good job so far. Well, you can't compare, you know, day and night. Yeah. So far, so good.
Yes, sir.
100% satisfied. Yeah.
Yeah.
You put the power steering on, and Dad's happy, Mom's happy, and the rest is history. We're driving. Now I'm sure if you go around the little town up north in Surgeon Falls, you'll probably see him over there driving his truck around for sure. There's no doubt.
Hey, wait. We go for a drive. Let's go on the honeymoon.
Well, Carl did a beautiful job with the lenses between the degassing and the pressure casting. He seems to have gotten them pretty crystal clear. And so now we're finished with that, but Arnold needs one last finishing touch. I think we should name it Arnold, our pressure pig, and paint it pink.
Al had to go the route of turning the pressure tank into a pig because he thought it looked like a pig. It needed to be painted anyway, so what can I say? It's boys will be boys.
Now it's perfect. Carl's gonna love it.